Hi everybody, I'm Richard from RSEV, and I've driven a Tesla Model Y standard range before, but that was in America, and this is one now in England. So I'm going to do a review on this car. I'll give you my impressions, what I think of it, what's good, what's bad. I know the long range very well, had one of them for quite a long time. But what I want to do with this actually is do a real world efficiency and range test. So as ever, I'm going to put it to work whilst I'm doing some other work anyway. And let's see what it gets. It's a really windy day, it's quite chilly, it's been raining on and off, so this is definitely far from ideal conditions. How efficient is the Model Y standard range going to be? What will its real world range be? And how does it compare to the dual motor long range version? So this is a standard range, which means it's a rear wheel drive car, not the four wheel drive like the dual motor. Has about 60 kilowatt hour LFP battery. This is a car that was registered in the UK right at the very end of December 22, and it's the one without parking sensors. So if you haven't seen it already, there's a video about the new Tesla Vision Parking Assist out. Don't forget to hit the link in the description below or look at our other recent videos. We're leaving with 82% battery. We're going to measure the distance we cover, the efficiency, and how much battery we use. And that'll be able to tell us then, if we prorata that out, what its range will be. We've done a few videos on the Model Y over the course of the last year, so in terms of practicality, space in the back. I'm not going to review those in this video. We've done quite a lot of that, and the standard range inside is the same as the long range. So there's three of us in the car, and we've got the heating on and everything real world. We're going to be driving at normal speed limits, real world driving, so we're not sort of hypermiling, and again very much is now starting to rain, drizzle outside. With the owner of this car, Chris, I'd like, firstly, Chris, thank you for bringing the car down for us to do these tests, much appreciated.
You're very welcome.
Now, what's quite interesting is you've previously owned a Kia e-Niro, you've previously owned a Hyundai Ioniq 5. How are you finding the Tesla Model Y standard?
I really like the car, but I don't unreservedly like it. It's got a few little annoying niggles for me, which don't spoil it, but how can I put it? It's not as good as I expected it to be.
Oh, really? Okay. So the good bits first. What do you like about it?
I love the simplicity.
Yep. So all the minimal one screen, all good with you?
Screen.
Yep.
I was worried about the one screen. A lot of people said that it's too complicated, that it's distracting from the driver. I didn't find that at all. Once you set it up as the way you like it, you never touch it.
What do you think of the way it drives?
I love the way it drives.
Yep.
I don't like the suspension. It's too firm.
It is firm, isn't it? Yeah, it's been probably one of my biggest single gripes of the Tesla Model Y is if it's a non-performance model, the standard or the long range, the suspension is just a bit firm, especially when you come from something like the Ioniq 5. What this does well is the single pedal driving, I think. Have you really kind of got used to that? It's good, isn't it? Yeah. Have you made use of the Tesla supercharging network yet?
Yes, I have.
And that is good, isn't it?
It's fantastic. Yeah.
And I think the route planning when you're doing a longer trip just gives you that much more confidence. And I think that if you're doing a lot of trips around the country, having that Tesla supercharging network and the confidence inspiring planning, especially if it's your first EV, I think really speaks a lot. And it's a lot of reason why a lot of people buy Teslas, of course. From your general use driving around, how would you generally pin what you'd allow for range?
Maximum range 230.
230?
Yeah.
Okay. What Tesla always do really well is efficiency. So we compare a car this size to Enyaq, ID4, Ioniq 5, they don't do too badly. What I did find the Ioniq 5 is on motorways, their efficiency really drops, and that's where Tesla especially tends to come through, especially at the high speed driving. Motorways where they're more aerodynamic and they get better efficiency, they just do.
What I don't like is that if you change that from percentage to mileage, when it's 100% charge, it always says 260, whatever the temperature, whatever the driving you've been doing, really and it's never going to get 260.
You'd have to be trying really hard. So what Tesla do is a static calculation for this display here, and it's based on some pretty optimal driving. So when you go to a lot of EVs, Porsche Taycans, for example, spend a lot of time in them as well. Their range on the screen will be based on really how it's been recently driven. So if you usually drive not caring, it comes down and doesn't read a very high reading, but it's accurate. If it says 200 miles, it's 200 miles, you know. what Tesla do is always a static calculation. So what I tend to do is when we're heading to somewhere, is I look at the percentage I'm going to arrive at. And so if I'm traveling 100 miles and I've got 105 miles of range, the car will say stop and charge. And it says here you're going to arrive at 1%. Well, I usually just set off and see how it goes. And if that 1% drops, then maybe I will charge or slow down a little bit. If it stays as it is, I'll carry on driving. But you're quite right, that mileage figure there is usually misleading. That's why I always use percentage.
I do as well.
Yeah.
But that arrival percentage is always very accurate.
It is, and you know this arrival percentage actually uses even the weather prediction, so it knows the wind and everything like that. And I have found that they did some improvements a little while ago on that, and I've found it to be pretty accurate and quite easy to improve upon it as well. If you just drive it nice and steady, it will usually climb up. So, but it says we're going to arrive at our destination with 67%. So if we remember, let's see what we arrived with. Have we found the rain sensor?
Rubbish.
Still learning. Apparently it learns every time you push this button here, kind of how often you kind of like it wiped. I was told that. Whether it's entirely true or not, I don't know. So that niggle about Tesla ride comfort, I have to say, as I've always said in the long ranges, and it's the same for this standard, on a motorway, fine, no problem. It seems to smoothen out. It's nice and quiet here. We do have the double laminated glass, so we're well sound insulated. It's a nice quiet cruiser. I've got autopilot on, which is keeping a nice distance to the car in front. There's a recent software update which enabled Tesla Vision parking assist. Separate video on that. But what's the autopilot like since? Well, I'm having trouble telling any difference, to be honest. It seems to be doing an okay job. This car has a standard autopilot, so if I indicate change lanes, it cancels the self-steering. You've got to re-engage it. If you have enhanced autopilot FSD, then it will handle that lane change. But just driving it like this, an autopilot, it's okay. Seems the same. Can't really tell the difference. So maybe I'll have some more opinion on that after some more extended driving. But Model Y on a motorway, lovely, very comfortable. Okay, we're just arriving at a stop-off point where I'm actually going to pick up a Tesla Model 3 standard range. Now, I'm going to do a side-by-side drive and see how a standard range Model 3 compares to standard range Model Y for its efficiency. It might be in a separate video, it might be in this video, I haven't decided yet. However, let me just take a check on this. So we've just covered a 35-mile solid drive, good mixed conditions, wet, windy, but motorway, some country roads and a bit through town there. I've averaged 231 watt-hours per mile. But now, Chris, you're going to drive your car back. Let's see how we get, and we'll get the total trip once we've travelled back. So again, a good mixed bag of conditions here.
Is that a challenge to beat 231?
Yeah, your challenge is to beat my driving. But you're not allowed to just go along at 60 miles an hour. You're not allowed to do that. That's not fair. But you know, it's really quite pleasant to drive, isn't it? It feels, I have to say, it feels very much like the long range. You can feel it slightly lighter at the front end, which I do like. You've got that kind of nicer steering feel, which I prefer. It's a bit slower, of course. Doesn't charge quite as quick, but it's just a nice car and feels very much the same. So let's see what we get for the overall. I'm not going to say what battery percentage I've got. We'll do that once we complete the trip. Okay, there's a Model 3 standard there. I'm going to jump in it. What's the real world range and efficiency? Well, based on today's tests, and it really is atrocious outside at the moment, that's why we're finishing this up indoors here. It's blowing an absolute gale out there, which would be great for the ferry I've got to get tomorrow morning. Anyway, what did we get for range efficiency in really bad conditions today? So on our trip there, we actually covered 74 miles. We averaged 252 watt-hours per mile, so that's basically 4 miles per kilowatt hour. We used 34% of the battery, so if we pro-rata that out, that would give us a 218 mile range. And that ties in exactly what the owner of this car, Chris, estimates his full range of this car to be in pretty mixed conditions. Now, his average long term on this car is actually better than that. That's 222 watt-hours per mile. So it's more like 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. And that's impressive. So that would actually give a range of more than 220 miles. So it might be quite a large, spacious family car, but it's a very efficient car. But today's rain and standing water really went against it. So that was a good kind of almost worst case scenario. Let's compare that to the Model Y long range. So we didn't have one to run side by side today. Another video on that coming soon. So make sure you are subscribed. That's in the making. But I used to always get in my Model Y long range, it looks exactly like this, although I did have the 20-inch wheels, but I don't see they make too much difference. I always used to get about 279 watt hours per mile. So this does seem to be a little bit more efficient, exactly what we expect. However, they've got a larger battery, so they would carry them further. So the Model Y long range, real world, I used to say about 280 miles. We did the video where we drove one as far as it would possibly go until it died. So if you haven't seen that, check out our other videos. And we actually covered over 290 miles in that case. But generally with the long range, you normally say 270, 280 miles. With the standard range, I'm going to say normally 210 to 240, depending how you're driving, 220 in today's wet, windy conditions. Any differences between the standard and the long range? Well, in here, everything looks the same, just as it does on the outside. I do love the amount of storage you get in the Model Y. Loads of storage here, loads of storage here, and the two wireless phone chargers. The seats seem to be the same, the screen's the same, so it's all very familiar. The heat pump's also standard, and on the Model 3s, the standard ranges didn't have as good a sound system, still pretty good, but the long range and the performance had a premium audio system. However, the Model Y, it's got premium audio system. And compared to the long range, it's also exactly the same in the back here, which is loads of legroom, loads of headroom, comfortable seats, you can adjust the backrest, and it does also have the heated rear seats as standard as well, so it's a good spec. When it comes to rapid charging, the standard range has a maximum charging speed of 170 kilowatts. Now that's not as good as the long range of performance of 250 kilowatts. 170 is not bad though, so it does charge quite fast. You may remember in the earlier Model S, if it was a rear-wheel drive, it had a bigger frunk, no front motor, more space. However, the later Model S were the same, and it's the same for the Model Y. It might only be the rear-wheel drive, but the frunk space is the same. They've still got the heat pump and the bigger HEPA air filter, so the frunk space is exactly the same as a dual motor. And the boot space is also the same. So I'm not going to go into the details of it too much. We've done lots of other videos of the Model Y, including practicality tests, putting items in the back here, how many people can you fit, comparing it to other cars on the market of a similar size as well. So do check out other videos for more about the interior and boot space and functionality and practicality of the Model Y. How does it drive compared to the long range? Well, as you'd expect, it's not as quick, but still plenty sufficient for most purposes. Still pretty quick car. I mean, we're talking under 7 seconds, 0 to 60. It isn't bad, is it, for a family car? It doesn't have quite that instant punch. After being used to dual motors and long ranges, it does lack that kind of instant bite, but it has that effortless torquey pull, easy overtaking. So it's still got sufficient performance, I would say. It does have that lighter feel to the front end, and I like that. I do like a rear-wheel drive car, so it has that lighter feel at the front end, which is nice. And I think that improves the ride slightly as well. It probably needs slightly less stiff springs at the front. So the one downside, really, of the Model Y, as I've always said, is it's just that little bit firm. Fine on motorways, but town and country roads are a little bit jarring. And if you're wearing a rustly coat like this one, you can tend to hear yourself moving about in the seat far more than you do with some of the other cars out there. So that's its Achilles heel, really. However, 2023 should bring the next batch of Model Ys coming soon, and they are alleged to have comfort suspension. So we look forward to doing some more tests with that, have Tesla finally softened off the suspension. Don't mind it firm for performance models, but the standard and the long range do need to be just that little bit softer. So we look forward to seeing more of that and doing some tests on those, hopefully coming soon. So there we are. I hope that's useful. We're going to be doing some more tests, hopefully, and like I say, a side-by-side comparison. So make sure you are subscribed on the channel, and we'll see you on another video very soon. Thank you for watching.